Welcome, everybody. Today we have a very special guest.
I knew early on that I wanted to make movies.
Such a difficult industry because there's a lot of luck involved.
I mean, look at American Werewolf in London, look at The Thing, look at The Fly. Look at these films that have really withstood the test of time.
I sculpted this Captain Kirk mask, and they didn't sell particularly well, but then John Carpenter came in, said, can you paint one white and spray paint his hair black?
I was maybe 9 or 10 years old, and it scared the living shit out of me.
You're just racking up these people that you grew up watching. They're in your films. Is that surreal?
There were 35 directors there. If there had been a bomb dropped on that restaurant, never another good horror movie.
Benet's Bloody Bits.
Welcome to Triple B. My name is Jason Benet. Today we have a very special guest. She's an actor. She's a model. She's all over the internet right now, and she's a big-time horror fan. That's got me really excited. Welcome, Sarah-Beth. Thank you for coming by to talk to me.
Of course. Thank you for having me, Jason.
So talk about where you grew up. What was your life growing up? Did you grow up in Texas?
I did. Yeah, I grew up in Friendswood, Texas. It's kind of like a suburb in the Houston area. And as a kid, I was always really into fantasy stuff. That's kind of where my interest in just like different sort of things kind of started. I was really into Lord of the Rings. I played a lot of Skyrim when I was a teenager. I still do. And then as I got a little bit older, my dad started showing me a lot of horror films. When I was 11, he introduced me to Halloween. And I think actually that same week he showed me Jaws. I guess we were just on like a bender of horror films that week. So yeah, I watched those and I was just so fascinated by them. You know, I was scared, but I really liked the rush of it. So from there, I just started leaning more into the genre. And as the years went on, I started getting more and more into the gory, grisly stuff, you know, the stuff that you can't really show your kids too much. That's when I started getting more into that, probably around like high school, college. And now I just consider myself a huge horror fan. And, you know, I'm currently working on a vampire novel. I'm taking my sweet time with that. I write poetry. I write all sorts of stuff, really. A lot of it is kind of based in horror elements. So horror has really just had a huge influence on my life and my artwork, and that's starting to kind of trickle into my modeling work as well. So anytime there's something spooky to be seen or heard or read, I'm there.
Is this going to be your first novel?
Yeah, I mean, I've written a lot of short stories. I have a ton of poems. But yeah, this vampire novel, I've been working on it for a little over a year. Like I said, I'm taking my sweet time with it. It's a beast of a novel. It takes place over 300 years. So yeah, it's just a really good project to come home to and just sit down and write some spooky stuff.
So it sounds like your dad's probably my age, because the films that he introduced you to are the ones I grew up with, Jaws and Halloween. Mm-hmm. So when did you become like Scream, the original from '96? When did you first like get into that film?
So Scream is one I got into a little bit later. It's actually what my boyfriend introduced me to. I know, it's like stereotypical horror girlfriend thing. Oh, like my boyfriend introduced me to Scream. But no, he really did. And it really just grew on me from the first movie. And now I've seen all of them. And I just absolutely love the franchise. It's funny, it's meta, it's smart, but it's also very scary at times. And I just love how all the elements come together.
I also feel like there have always been female horror fans, but I think things changed around the mid to late 90s. I think they were more seen and heard around the Scream era, Urban Legend, I Know What You Did Last Summer. Did you see that, like girls? Because in the past, growing up, I don't know, 70s and 80s, you didn't really see the girl fans. Now they're everywhere, and they're probably collect movies and watch these things as much as the guys do. Was that like empowering to like see that, you know, your fans, female fans were everywhere?
Yeah, like whenever I go to horror conventions, it's pretty evenly balanced, I would say. It's probably like equal parts guy and girl in attendance. And it's just always fun to see everyone go crazy in their cosplays and meet all the celebrities. I love going to horror cons.
So was Scream a home video the first time you saw it?
I think we watched it on a streaming service. I don't remember which one. Actually, no, my boyfriend has it on Blu-ray, I think. I don't know. It could have been on DVD. It's been a while now, but yeah, we just put it in one day, sat down and watched it. And when I came out of it, I was just like, wow, that was good.
What are your thoughts on the 2, 3, and 4? The 4 films that were directed by Wes Craven. Did you like the sequels as much? Those 3?
I do. I like the sequels a lot. I don't really think any of them have really topped the first one, just because, like, you know, Billy and Stu, there's something really haunting when you think about, like, these are high schoolers just doing like the worst things you can imagine. You know, in the second movie, you have Billy Loomis's mom and you have Mickey, who's like a literal serial killer. But in the first movie, it's just some high schoolers. It's really scary to think that, like, you know, at the high school down the street, you might have some kids who are doing something like this. And I know it's a movie, but, you know, the whole joke in Scream is that, like, are we in a movie or are we in real life? And it kind of makes you wonder about, you know, this world that we're in. Is it a movie as well? And that's part of what I like about Scream, because I don't really think we had meta horror before the first Scream movie. It was a very new thing to introduce this concept where the characters know that they're in a horror movie. And as you go through the sequels, you know, they think that they're in a horror movie and then they have a sequel. And then by the third movie, you know, when Randy has that video, you know, I don't know if I can get into spoilers here, but
you know, if they haven't watched it by now, that's their problem. Go ahead.
get out of here. Go watch the Scream movies.
Exactly.
But yeah, so like in the third movie, when Randy is doing his sort of like post-mortem, you know, speech in that video that they're watching, he goes, you know, this is no longer a sequel. This is a rare horror trilogy. And I just love how meta the series is. As the time goes on, you see it unfold as more than just a movie. And I think in Scream 6, that's when they go, we're no longer in a sequel, we're in a franchise. And I just think that's so funny. And I do love the sequels. The sequels really just build up what was established in the first Scream. And you know, they never detract from the original, they build upon it, and I just really appreciate that.
I was going to get there too. So you were okay with Scream 5 and 6, the reboot, because it seems like some Scream fans, there was a split, because there's always the old school. I like the originals, but Nev Campbell was brought back. Obviously, Wes Craven had passed away, so they had to move the torch to somebody else. I actually like 5 and 6 just as much as some of the original ones. I liked Jenna Ortega. I liked Melissa Barrera. I don't know. Where do you rank 5 and 6 compared to the original 4 films?
I liked 5 and 6. It's actually been a while since I've watched 5, because I saw that in theaters. And then I saw 6, I think, several times. But yeah, the ones I'm most familiar with are, like, you know, the Wes Craven ones, 1 through 4. But I liked 5 and 6. And I think the 7th one is supposed to come out in 2026. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes, because I think they're also getting Nev Campbell back for that one.
I saw the poster. I believe Kevin Williamson is writing it again. And they're going to have to reboot the reboot, just because of the Melissa Barrera being fired for reasons that I still think are kind of, I don't know. I think you have without getting political, I think you do have a right to your opinion. And I think when she got the boot, and then Jenna Ortega was like, I'm out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so where do we go from here? It's going to be very interesting. Do they just get rid of 5 and 6 and make this like a new part 5? You know, with the storyline, it's going to be like the Halloween franchise, where it's going to be very fractured. And, you know, and I know some people are like, I'm not going to go see this new one because she got fired. If you're a Scream fan, you're going to go see it.
Yeah, you're going to show up for it. Like, don't kid yourself, people. But yeah, now I don't know how this would work, but I have heard a lot of fan theories that they might try to bring Stu back. Like, it's been kind of teased throughout the franchise. I know in Scream 6, there's a scene where, like, they're talking about what Stu happens, or like what happened to Stu, excuse me. And you know, one of the characters, I forgot who said it, but she was like, you know, if you think he's actually dead. And it just makes me think, like, wait a minute, so is that them teasing that he might come back? And I keep thinking about that line a lot because it's just like, are y'all gonna bring Stu back? And if so, how? I mean, he got his head crushed by a big chunky 90s TV, and like, you know, he was already stabbed a bunch, so I don't know how they're gonna do that, but I think the fans would just be happy to have him back in any
I
form.
think that fans are still surprised they killed him because he was one of us. He was the horror fan. He was the nerd, the geek that knew a lot about horror films. But maybe they could just do like the Chucky TV series with Devin Sawa's character and bring him back every movie as a different character, or
Yeah.
kill him and just have fun with it, because I guess you can go anywhere. I think people would want to see him back. I mean, it's been a long, I mean, Scream 2 is 1997, so we haven't seen that guy in a long time in a Scream film. And he's still out there, you know, he does the conventions and stuff. So I'd be okay with it.
Yeah, I actually had the privilege of meeting Matthew Lillard. In fact, I met the entire like Scream main cast when I went to Texas Frightmare back in May of this year. They had Skeet Ulrich, Matthew Lillard, Neff Campbell, and Jamie Kennedy. And I got, my boyfriend and I, we got a photo op with, sorry, losing my voice.
That's okay.
I got a photo op with them, and we also got their autographs. And they were all just wonderfully pleasant people. They were very fun. We got to have a little bit of chats with them, and it did just kind of make me think about how much time has passed since the first movie. Because, you know, all of these guys have gone on to have amazing careers, and whenever I go back to watch Scream 1, it just makes me think, you know, like, this is where it all began, and it just became this huge thing. In fact, 2 years ago, we saw a theatrical screening of Scream in Dallas. It was at the Texas Theater, and Skeet Ulrich and Matthew Lillard were there, and they did a Q&A afterwards, and Matthew Lillard mentioned that no one really expected this movie to be anything when they were making it. It just kind of seemed like a passion project at the time, but then it became huge, and they just decided to, you know, take the ball and roll with it. And I just think that's really inspiring.
I have seen footage of Matthew Lillard at the conventions, and his lines are so long. He's the only person I've ever seen, and I did conventions for the longest time. He would get out of his chair and go thank the people in the crowd as they're waiting, like shake their hands. And most people, well, I shouldn't say most, a lot of people will put their head down, like with their phone,
Yeah.
whether they have a line or not. And he actually engages. And I think that's endearing. And whether he's doing it on purpose or not, that's going to make him more money, because
Yeah.
people are going to be like, he was so nice and he's taking the time to get to know us. I know not all people at conventions can be very talkative and interactive with the fans, so I give him credit. He has every reason not to be that way because he's still busy. He still works. He's the voice of, you know, what is it, Shaggy in the new Scooby-Doo animated series that they do, and that's very nice to see, because I know the convention scene has changed quite a bit. It's become a little bit more corporate than it used to be, a little bit less fan friendly. But that's good to know that your experience with the Screencast was good.
Yeah, and you know, speaking of his line, oh my goodness, like if you wanted to get in line to meet Matthew Lillard, you had to beeline over there. If anyone listening to this wants to meet Matthew Lillard at a convention, you have to be at the front of the line as soon as the convention opens, because people rush to that line. My boyfriend and I, we were actually pretty early. We were pretty far ahead as far as the line goes, and we bolted in there, and we still didn't get in line. They cut it off, and they were like, all right, you got to come back. They gave us these like little tickets, and you had to wait for your number to be called, and that's how it kind of managed to work out. It actually ended up being a pretty good system because, like, you know, it's not like they just closed the line off for the whole day and told everyone to leave. They still wanted to give you a chance to meet them, so we were grateful for that. But yeah, like, you really have to run in there if you want to meet Matthew Lillard. And, you know, all of their lines are really long, but like Matthew's, you know, you have the Scooby-Doo people in there, you have the SLC Punk people in there, and we love them in all of those movies. So, you know,
Yeah.
It was like especially important for us to meet them that day.
I used to think that horror conventions, which were big, I think it's bigger now. I think there's more horror fans. I don't think people are worried about what others think of them anymore. They don't care, which is good. You shouldn't care. And Texas Frightmare is very huge
Yeah.
convention. I know Chiller on the East Coast. Over here we have Monster Palooza, but I think Texas Frightmare is kind of, because I live in California and we're spoiled as shit because we have access to LA and Hollywood literally on a weekly basis. You can go to a screening at the New Beverly, at the Aero Theater, and there's going to be a Q&A with the director, the actor. That's how I actually met Wes Craven.
Ooh.
I went to 2 screenings in LA. One was A Nightmare on Elm Street. One was a midnight screening of Shocker, and Ted Raimi was there. And I got pictures with him, and I'm glad I did because I didn't know, he was going to pass away shortly after that.
Right.
But I got to make Wes Craven laugh because they're screening Shocker, and I don't know if you know, the killer's bald, like me. So I joked with him before the picture, hey, if you ever do a remake, I'm your guy. And he laughed. So autographs are great and pictures are great, but I'm glad I got to get him to chuckle. It was people like him and George Romero and Toby Hooper, these guys that are no longer with us. It's very sad,
Mm-hmm. I really do think that, like, when we go in there for the autographs, it's like, yeah, we're there for the signature, but we're really there for the interaction. We're just there to thank them for the influence they've had on their lives and, maybe make them chuckle if we're lucky.
Yeah, and it's very important because you just don't know, right? People could be here today and gone tomorrow. So that's very cool. But let's talk about Sarah-Beth. Now, where did you go to college?
So I got my bachelor's of arts in media at A&M Corpus Christi. It was very film focused. Like, there were 2 different directions you could go with it. One was media studies and one was media production. I chose media production because that was the more film focused one. And my ultimate dream is to be a screenwriter. So that's where I was like, I'm going that way. And I also got a minor in theater because I also love to act. So my whole life is film, basically.
What year did you graduate?
I graduated in December 2020.
So COVID was really a game changer and threw everything for a loop for you?
Yeah, it was pretty tough. I really wanted to do some internships, but everything was shut down. So no internships for me. But, it's all good. It ended up working out really well because, I moved back to Houston. I met my boyfriend and, sometimes life just works in a funny way.
So COVID kind of goes away, even though coronavirus is still around, but we're back to normal. Are you trying to get acting gigs? What is your focus from after the pandemic?
So after the pandemic, I started getting into modeling. That was when I was about like 22. I started getting into modeling more, and I love modeling. It's what I'm, I guess known for. I'm not famous or anything, but I guess most people associate me with modeling. But one thing I really want to do is get more into film, and I'm just kind of, looking for opportunities whenever I can, whether it's acting, screenwriting. I've done some script supervising before, and that was a lot of fun. So yeah, like, I just try to be a Swiss Army knife when it comes to film. I like to be helpful whenever I can.
What is the film industry like in Texas? Obviously out here in LA, it's big. I know in Canada and in Atlanta. What is it like there?
So definitely the big city for film here is Austin. There's a really good indie scene going over there. But Dallas is known for its voice acting because they have like Funimation and Crunchyroll. They have a lot of anime studios over there, and they get a lot of anime from Japan, and they have people in Dallas dub it for English audiences. So there's a pretty good scene over there. As for Houston, I wouldn't say there's that big of a film scene. They're working on it. But Houston is definitely more known for its like stage work. We have a pretty good theater scene here. So there's never a shortage of work for actors here, thankfully.
So do you have any aspirations when it comes to modeling? Anybody you model yourself after? No pun intended.
I like that. Yeah, my inspiration is Dita Von Teese. I just think she's gorgeous. I love her photo shoots. I've seen her live before, and her burlesque shows are just, mwah, they're wonderful. And I the first time I laid eyes on her when I was like in high school, I was just like, when I grow up, I want to be like that. I want to have red lipstick, black hair. I want to be doing burlesque shows and just being glamorous. So she's probably my biggest inspiration as far as modeling goes, but I also like people like Betty Page, Marilyn Monroe. You know, I like the classic pinup girls as well.
So in a way, you're an old soul. You like that retro, the 50s, that whole aesthetic, that look.
Yeah, my style, I kind of consider it a blend of like mid-century pinup and 90s goth because I'm really into like 50s through 70s aesthetically, but I also love the 90s because, you know, I was born in 1998. I really didn't get to experience much of the 90s, but I've always been really fascinated by it. It just seemed a whole different time before the internet just took over everything. You had a little bit of internet, but it was like kept at your computer at home. You didn't take it everywhere with you. And I find myself fascinated with that time in history, and also the music was great. So
Yeah.
I just consider that to be, you know, my stylistic influences are mid-century and 90s.
Sarah was born in 1998, folks. I feel old. But then you think about it, we're in 2024, so time's flying too fast. So what can you say about Purgatory? So people don't know the branding, the YouTube channel, because that seems to be a hub of where you spend a lot of your time.
Yeah, so Purgatory TV, it's where we show off, you know, underground metal. It's kind of branched off into other things. We have the guilty pleasures section, which is just kind of like, you know, an homage to all sorts of different genres that we like. There's also the anime segment where Marcos talks about, you know, certain animes that he likes. So the real vibe that we're going for with that show is sort of like an MTV throwback to, you know, just music videos that you might turn on and just watch. And it's just a great time. I love everyone involved. I love, you know, learning about new music through the show. And we just encourage other people to broaden their horizons musically.
I've seen the name Marcos. Who is Marcos?
Marcos Orlando, he runs the lobby. He runs the Purgatory channel. He also does interviews with bands as well. So it's just a fun time over there. It's very inspiring to set foot in the lobby. That's the studio where it's shot.
I've seen faces change over the years. How many girls would you say are part of the Purgatory ensemble?
It's you're right, like we do get new faces. We have a lot of guests that come in from all over the place. There's me, there's Tori, who else? At this point, we're just kind of like inviting, you know, guests from all over. Like, I visit when I can. Tori and Marcos are like the main hosts, I'd say, but I'm definitely a part of it. And then we also just get people who, you know, fly in, drive in, and they're all equally as passionate about music as we are.
What kind of metal are you reviewing?
There's a lot of black metal, death metal. It's all like very underground stuff. You know, if you read through the titles, it's a lot of stuff that you've probably never heard of. I know that's such a hipster thing to say, but you know, whenever I go to the show and I'm reading the titles of these bands, I'm just like, man, like these are some cool band names. Very out there. And I like that. I like bands that are really out there and interesting.
Do these bands reach out to you for reviews? And if so, how are they when you're supposed to be honest with your opinions and you might not like a certain song or album? Do they get a little bit, you know, kind of ticked off or?
So Marcos is the one who handles most of that. Like whenever they reach out to us, you know, he works his little magic with them and makes sure that they get the shout out in the clip for the video. But yeah, I can't really say there's anything on there that we haven't liked. You know, all of the stuff that we show on the Purgatory show is stuff that we stand by. It's stuff that we would listen to and stuff that we would want to show our friends.
Yeah, I think that's very, in the YouTube world, there are a lot of YouTubers, but there's not lots of groups. But what I like is there's a quartet generally of 4 girls you're talking sometimes horror films, music, and I think that's very rare. I think I see a lot of guy YouTubers, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm one of them, but I think we need to mix it up, and I think it's good that your channel balances that out.
Yeah, it's good to have kind of a feminine energy in metal like that.
What's next? Where do you see in a perfect world in 5 years, what do you see yourself doing if ever the planets align and, things go your way?
So the dream for me has always been to work as like a screenwriter in a film studio with a board of other screenwriters. That's my ultimate dream. I just think that would be fantastic. But honestly, if I can't get there in 5 years, I'll just take anything a film studio wants to give me. I'll sort files. I'll do anything. I just want to make really good works of art and put a little bit of beauty into this world.
It's for acting in the whole cinematic world. If there was one movie you could pop yourself in and go, that's the movie I would love to have been in. Is there a role from the past that you're like, that's the movie for me? I would have loved to have been a part of that cast and being in that film.
Yeah, so the X trilogy, I'm sure you're familiar with it, Mia Goth, all of them. I absolutely love that trilogy. I saw Maxine the day it came out with my boyfriend, and we just left the theater going, this is a really special trilogy. And I know some people weren't big fans of the third one. I don't really know why. I guess maybe it's because of the ending. But for me, the whole trilogy is just golden. It's this perfect blend of like sex appeal and comedy and tragedy. And especially with Pearl, I'd say Pearl is probably like that movie I would love to have been in, because Pearl is such a tragic character, but she also has this beauty and whimsy in her life too. And I just find it very haunting and fascinating that like someone with such big dreams can fall so hard in the end. And I think as an actress, that would have been really cool to have been a part of.
I like that. In the 100 plus years of movie history, you pick something current, which I think is very cool.
Yeah.
And you did a photo shoot as Pearl, because I remember you had the little freckles put on and overalls, and I think that's when I started to notice your Instagram page. So you purposely is like, I like this film, I want to do a photo shoot.
Yeah. So that was my Maxine cosplay, and I did it. It was funny. I actually just took my camera and did like a photo shoot in this pipeline that's like behind our yard. Like you open the gate, you go back there, and there's just this big open field with power lines and critters. And I was like, this is the perfect place. So I just set up my phone. I say camera, but it was really my phone. I set it up on a tripod and just took some selfies, and it got pretty good traction. And I just figured, I should do this again. So I did the cosplay again for Houston Horror, the Houston Horror Film Festival. I went there dressed as Maxine, and I actually found this other girl dressed as Pearl, and we took a funny picture together. And yeah, something about the X trilogy just really grabs me, and I think it has to do with just like the tragic elements. But in Maxine, it's very victorious, so it's kind of a satisfying end to the trilogy. It goes from tragedy to like even deeper tragedy to just like stardom, and I love seeing a success story like that.
What do you think of social media in general? It's such a powerful tool. I don't take it for granted that we live in a time where you can do this stuff for free. A YouTube interview, Instagram, even TikTok, even though that one's a little bit more cringy for me. What are your thoughts on social media in general, the good, the bad of it?
I have kind of a love-hate thing with social media. I think it's done a lot of good. I think it's great that people have this ability to make income on the internet nowadays just by, reviewing movies or modeling or doing whatever they want, really. It's this great way to make income by doing what you love. It's something that we didn't really have before the internet. So for that, I really appreciate it. However, I do think it has a tendency to bring out the narcissism in a lot of people. And it has caused, just a lot of pain, like with these stupid TikTok trends that get people hurt and hospitalized sometimes. It's just, I try to take the good with the bad. I acknowledge the bad, but I also recognize that if social media just disappeared, like poof, it was gone, we'd be really the world would be in a bad way. So I'm grateful that we have it. I just think over time people hopefully will learn to use it responsibly.
Where can people find you on social media?
So they can find me on Instagram. My Instagram is Sarah_Beth.jpg. I also have a link tree on there, so you can find me on, the forbidden site. You can find me on there. I also have a Tumblr where I just post all sorts of stuff that I like, art, gift sets of movies, GIF, I still don't know how to say it, but it's just kind of like where I post stuff that I'm interested in. So yeah, I'm most active on Instagram and Tumblr, but then I also have, the OF, and they can find me on there as well.
If you guys don't know what the OF is, you need to get with it, because I think that's a common acronym now that we all know what that means. And then Purgatory is on YouTube.
Yes, the Purgatory channel. It's Purgatory TV, and it's just great. It's great if you just want like sort of an MTV thing playing on your TV. It's a great way to just kind of decompress at the end of the day. I hope everyone checks it out.
I will put a link for both of those in the description of this video if people can't find it. Thank you, Sarah-Beth, for spending a little bit of your time with me. Best of luck with all your future projects, and keep doing your thing. And eventually, those doors will open for you.
Thanks, Jason. I appreciate that. And thanks for having me. This was a good talk.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Take care and talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.